In this video, we're going to review the batch index method in Contentverse Enterprise Online. So the batch index method is a method used to create multiple documents in Contentverse at the same time. Previously, you've seen how we can create a single document in Contentverse. So to begin, click on this button right here, which if you hover over it, it says batch indexing. And you're going to get to this screen, which is titled Contentverse Batch Indexing. Now, within this window here, there's always going to be something called an input folder. So every user who's logged in will always have their own default input folder. And you can create additional folders as necessary. So think of a scenario where you have in your organization a scanner, someone who's doing all the scanning and maybe scanning all the invoices, but they are not responsible for indexing into the system. So what they could do is scan in a whole bunch of invoices into a folder and then share that folder amongst multiple users in Contentverse that can utilize those. So in order to create a new folder in here, you can click on the ellipses here and click Create Folder. I can create a new folder. I can call it Accounts Payable Invoices if I wanted. Really, it all depends on what you're trying to import into the system. I can create a folder called Purchase Orders if I wanted. This right here is optional. You don't have to enter a description in, but you could if you wanted. I'll just call my folder Invoices. There's an option here that says Allow Deleted Source. And what this means is if you check this, then once you import files into this temporary folder, this invoices folder, if for whatever reason later you decide you don't need those files in that folder, you have the ability to delete them. So as I said, that example I gave of scanners, if someone scanned it in, perhaps something wasn't scanned in properly, it was, they accidentally scanned in the purchase order into the invoices folder. Regardless, what you could do as a user who has access to this temporary folder, you could delete that file that you see in the invoices folder. Now, delete on index, what that means is once you index it into the system, as in, you apply a document type and you select a folder in Contentverse where you want to store this, as it is actually fully indexed, it'll delete it from this input folder. So this is just prevent you from indexing the same document over and over again. Obviously, if one person had indexed the document already, we don't want another user who has access to this folder to index it again. But once you've set your settings, click on OK, and now you're going to see the folder Invoices right here. Now, if you click this ellipses again, just want to show you some of the other options here. You could delete the folder that you just created. You can go back to the settings that we just saw right now and uncheck deleted source or delete on index. With this same folder, you can also share. So I was talking about how maybe a scanner is able to share this folder with people who are going to be indexing to the system. So I can click share and then say, this user named Abby, Beth, and Brandon all should have access to this folder. Click assign. And now when they log in, they're going to see it. Now, if they were already logged in and they were already in the batch indexing screen, they may not see it right away, but they could just click refresh and then they should see that folder show up for them. Now, there's an option, show thumbnails, but you also see it right here as well. And that applies to being able to see a preview or a thumbnail of a file that you have imported into this folder. Now, we don't have any files in here yet, everything's empty. And so there's multiple ways of getting files into this folder. One method is just clicking the Choose Files button here. And go to File Explorer, and I can choose a file or multiple files, just like you do in Windows. Click Open, and it's going to import this file into this temporary folder. Additionally, you could highlight multiple files in a folder and just drag and drop. So now, as you can see, I have 4 different invoices within this temporary folder called Invoices. Now, of course, you can see the size of each of them and when they were modified. If I just want to see a preview, as I had described previously, just click the checkbox next to one of the PDF files and you'll see a preview of the PDF file. Now, if I want to index into the system, I can just click on the index button. But let's say I want to do store both these PDFs, invoice 4 and 5, as one document, I can select both, click create a single document, then click index. And now it's going to take you to a screen where you're able to select, the folder where you want to store these. So I'm in the folder. I was already in a folder called invoices, so that's why it already defaulted to that. But I'm going to continue just to store it in the invoices folder. I won't change the folder. I had already applied a document type called invoice1 as something called a node property, which is just a default in this folder. So no matter what, whenever I try to create any document there, this will be the default. But that's covered in a separate video on how to set those defaults. But now that I do want to set this or create this as an invoice, I need to fill in an invoice number. So I can see it on the right hand side, that this is invoice number is SS5568G. And this is the only field that's required, has an asterisk next to it. But I'll fill in a couple of additional fields. For example, I'll put in the date. You could put in an order number here if you wanted. You could use the OCR button here and use it to extract data from here and then paste it into this field here. Regardless, once you're done filling out whatever needs to be filled out, you can click on create and it'll create the document in the system. Now, if you wanted to retain this doc type and any of these field values in the folder you're storing in, just because the next document you want to index in using much of the same criteria, just ensure you select retain. This way it'll just retain that. It'll just save you some work when you're trying to create a new document. Let's say I click create here. You can view the document that you just created. So here it is. Now if I go back to the batch indexing screen and go back to that invoices folder, you're going to see that the invoice 4 and 5 have been deleted because, if you recall, I had those settings set delete on index, meaning once they're indexed, delete it from the system. So I can definitely index the rest of these, and once I'm done indexing, then this folder will become empty. So that concludes our video on using the batch indexing method in Contentverse Enterprise Online.